This is Freddie Hubbard, American jazz trumpeter. Now, if you're looking for a trumpet player that can play bebop, hard bop, has one of the most unmistakable and influential tones and sounds as a trumpet player, along with being a Grammy Award winner and one of the top 10 trumpet players of all time, you came to the right place. This video will examine the life and music of Freddie Hubbard. Welcome back to my channel. Freddie Dewayne Hubbard, born April 7th, 1938, died December 29th, 2008, was an American jazz trumpeter. He played bebop, hard bop, and post-bop styles from the early 1960s onwards. His unmistakable and influential tone contributed to new perspectives for modern jazz and bebop. His beginnings: Hubbard started playing the mellophone and trumpet in his school band at Arsenal Technical High School in Indianapolis, Indiana. Trumpeter Lee Katzman, former sideman for Stan Kenton, recommended that he begin taking trumpet lessons at the Arthur Jordan Conservatory of Music, now the Jordan College of the Arts at Butler University, with Max Woodbury, principal trumpeter of the Indianapolis Symphony Orchestra. In his teens, Hubbard worked locally with brothers Wes and Monk Montgomery and worked with bassist Larry Ridley and saxophonist James Spaulding. In 1958, at the age of 20, he moved to New York and began playing with some of the best jazz players of the era, including Philly Joe Jones, Sonny Rollins, Slide Hampton, Eric Dolphy, J.J. Johnson, and Quincy Jones. On June 19, 1960, Hubbard made his first record as a leader, Open Sesame, at the beginning of his contract with Blue Note Records with saxophonist Tina Brooks, pianist McCoy Tyner, bassist Sam Jones, and drummer Clifford Jarvis. 6 days later, he returned the favor to Brooks and recorded with him on True Blue. The 1960s. In December 1960, Hubbard was invited to play on Ornette Coleman's Free Jazz after Coleman heard him performing with Don Cherry. In May 1961, Hubbard played on Ole Coltrane, John Coltrane's final session with Atlantic Records. Coltrane also hired Hubbard, Eric Dolphy, and Art Davis, who all appeared on Ole, to record Africa Brass, Coltrane's first album with Impulse, which was begun just after Ole. In August 1961, Hubbard recorded Ready for Freddie with Blue Note, which was also his first collaboration with saxophonist Wayne Shorter. Hubbard became Shorter's bandmate when he replaced Lee Morgan and Art Blakey's Jazz Messengers later in 1961. He played on more than 10 live and studio recordings with Blakey during one of the most acclaimed eras of the Jazz Messengers, including Caravan, Mosaic, and Free for All. In all, during the 1960s, he recorded 8 studio albums as a bandleader for Blue Note and more than 24 as a sideman. Hubbard remained with Blakey until 1966, leaving to form the first of several small groups of his own, which featured, among others, his Blue Note associate James Spaulding, pianist Kenny Barron, and drummer Louis Hayes. This group recorded for Atlantic. It was during this time that he began to develop his own sound, distancing himself from the early influences of Clifford Brown and Morgan, and won the downbeat jazz magazine New Star Award for Trumpet. Throughout the 1960s, Hubbard played as a sideman on many of the most important albums of the era, including Oliver Nelson's The Blues and the Abstract Truth, Eric Dolphy's Out to Lunch, Herbie Hancock's Maiden Voyage, and Wayne Shorter's Speak No Evil. Hubbard was described as the most brilliant trumpeter of a generation of musicians who stand on one foot in tonal jazz and the other in the atonal camp. Though he never fully embraced the free jazz of the 1960s, he appeared on 2 of its landmark albums, Coleman's Free Jazz and Coltrane's Ascension, as well as on Sonny Rollins' New Thing track, East Broadway Rundown, on the 1960 album of the same name with Elvin Jones and Jimmy Garrison. The 1970s. Hubbard achieved his greatest popular success in the 1970s with a series of albums for Creed Taylor and his record label, CTI Records, overshadowing Stanley Turrentine, Hubert Laws, and George Benson. Although his early 1970s jazz albums, Red Clay, First Light, Straight Life, and Skydive, were particularly well received and considered among his best work, The albums he recorded later in the decade were attacked by critics for their commercialism. First Light won a 1972 Grammy Award and included pianist Herbie Hancock and Richard Wyans, guitarist Eric Gale and George Benson, bassist Ron Carter, drummer Jack DeJohnette, and percussionist Airto Moreira. In 1994, Hubbard collaborated with Chicago jazz vocalist co-writer Catherine Whitney, had lyrics set to the music of First Light. In 1977, Hubbard joined the all-star VSOP band, which also featured Herbie Hancock, Tony Williams, Ron Carter, and Wayne Shorter. All of the band's members except Hubbard were members of the mid-1960s Miles Davis Quintet. Several live recordings of this group were released as VSOP, VSOP the Quintet, VSOP Tempest in the Coliseum in 1977, and VSOP Live Under the Sky in 1979. Hubbard's trumpet playing was featured on the track Zanzibar from the 1978 Billy Joel album 52nd Street, the 1979 Grammy Award winner for Best Album. The track ends with a fade during Hubbard's performance. An unfaded version was released in 2004 Billy Joel box set entitled My Lives. Later on in the 1980s, Hubbard was again leading his own group, this time with Billy Childs and Larry Klein, among others, as members, attracting favorable reviews, playing at concerts and festivals in the US and Europe, often in the company of Joe Henderson, playing a repertoire of hard bop and modal jazz pieces. Hubbard played at the Monterey Jazz Festival in 1980 and in 1989. He and Woody Shaw recorded 2 albums as co-leaders for Blue Note and played live concerts together from 1985 to 1987. In 1987, he was co-leader with Benny Golson on the Stardust album. In 1988, he again teamed up with Blakely at an engagement in the Netherlands, from which came Feel the Wind. In 1988, Hubbard played with Elton John, contributing trumpet and flugelhorn and trumpet solos on the track Mona Lisa's and Mad Hatter for John's Strike Back album. In 1990, he appeared in Japan, headlining an American-Japanese concert package, which also featured Elvis Jones, Sonny Fortune, pianist Joe Duke and Benny Green, bassist Ron Carter and Rufus Reid, with jazz vocalist Selena Jones. He also performed at the Warsaw Jazz Festival, at which Live at the Warsaw Jazz Festival album was recorded. Following a long setback of health problems and a serious lip injury in 1992, when he subsequently developed an infection, Hubbard was again playing and recording occasionally, even if not at the level he set for himself during his earlier career. His best records ranked with the finest in his field. I hope you enjoyed this video on one of my favorite trumpet players, Freddie Hubbard. Now, if you've got a musician or band you'd like featured on this YouTube channel, pop it in the comments section. I'll make another video. Thanks for dropping by. Rock on.